I want to welcome everybody to Tanzania. Now, does everybody know the theme for this trip is to what? Relax and what? Enjoy. So I think everybody can tell we're going to have a good time already.
Apply the heat and the balloon will rise.
I came from the mud. There's dirt on my hands. Strong like a tree. There's roots where I stand. Oh, I've been running from the law. Hope they won't shoot me down soon. Try to catch me howling at the moon.
Drop line, it was special. It was special.
Jay, there's a saying in life, there ain't no mountain high enough. Especially, that's been my lifetime saying. Actually, I invented a mountain called Space Mountain. But you, my brother, have climbed Mount Kilimanjaro. Even the Nature Boys have done that. You are my hero. You are my man. You are the man. Congratulations. Woo!
I have made it. All right. Oh my goodness. You don't understand what it's taking to get to the roof of Africa. The summit, Mount Kilimanjaro. Oh, everything in me to get here. Oh my goodness. I'm so exhausted. Oh.
The number one question I'm asked is, why did I choose to climb Mount Kilimanjaro? And the answer for me is pretty simple. I had reached a plateau in my life, had a lot of accomplishments, done a lot of things, started businesses. I've done much of what many people would want to do, and so I kind of hit this plateau. And I said, I need to do something that's going to stretch me physically as well as mentally. And my trip to West Africa actually prompted my trip to East Africa, and that's where Mount Kilimanjaro is. And I said, if I'm going to have this moment, why don't I climb Mount Kilimanjaro? And it's funny because I've never climbed a mountain before in my life. I barely climbed a hill. And I knew that going to the roof of Africa, the tallest freestanding mountain in the world, would be something that would challenge me on that level. And it's completely outside of my comfort zone, completely outside of anything that I was familiar with. And also, on a deeper level, when I went to Ghana and I went to the slave dungeons and saw the door of no return, that spoke volumes to me, because that was basically saying that I was not supposed to be there. I wasn't supposed to come back. And so climbing to the top of Mount Kilimanjaro was not only kicking down the door of no return, but I was also climbing to the top of the tallest mountain in Africa. So there were so many different things: the plateau, the career plateau, the life plateau, but then also really correcting a wrong and just saying, hey, listen, I'm gonna do the very thing that you know, quote unquote, didn't want me to do. And so that inspired me and led me to climb Mount Kilimanjaro. Once I made the decision to climb Mount Kilimanjaro, I didn't quite know what I was getting myself into. Let me take you back a little bit, because really my journey to Africa began as a part of an experiment that I did in 2016. It was called my $19,000 Uber experiment. And what happened, one day I was actually riding in an Uber and my driver was telling me how his brother made $19,000 in 1 month of driving for Uber. So my entrepreneurial mind kicked in and said, you know what, $19,000 a month, that might be a game changer. So I decided I was gonna take the challenge, and I started driving Uber to try to hit this $19,000 challenge. But interestingly enough, one day I picked up this young lady from Ethiopia, and she started telling me about the beauty of Ethiopia. She started just kind of schooling me like I was a first grader on historical facts that I was just not aware of. I said, all of these historical facts, I did not know this. This is not something that I was taught in school. And it piqued my curiosity as it pertained to Ethiopia. So fast forward a couple years later, I said, well, now it's time for me to go to Africa. Okay, I'm gonna go to Ghana. So I went to Ghana. I had that life-changing experience that I talk about in the Ghana Chronicles. And so then I said, it's time for me to go to East Africa and see what's going on over there. So Mount Kilimanjaro was a part of it. Zanzibar was a part of it. And now Ethiopia was a part of it because of what this young lady shared with me on this Uber ride. Had I never taken that challenge, I would have never met her in my interest. I would have always been thinking that Ethiopia was just full of poor people and sick kids and just all of these negative narratives as it pertains to how I was thinking from an American perspective. As you will learn, my whole world changed as a result of my time in East Africa and climbing Mount Kilimanjaro. Interestingly enough, it was a trip to Louisiana that opened my eyes to much of what happened during the Middle Passage and the transatlantic slave trade. And what I saw in Louisiana shocked me, it challenged me, but it confirmed my going back to East Africa and climbing Mount Kilimanjaro.
This is the most incredible thing I've seen in a long time, watching all of this.
Agreed, huh?
What was it like when I booked my trip? I'll be honest, I was procrastinating with booking that trip because I knew that I'd never climbed a mountain before, and here I am getting ready to go climb Mount Kilimanjaro. So it took me a couple of days to finally click the confirm button and make the payment. But once I did, I knew I was committed to it, and I began the training process, really the preparation process. And that's the thing, it was like my mindset shifted instantly to say, okay, now I'm committed to doing this, and I'm committed to being successful with it, so what do I need to do in order for that to happen? How did others respond to my decision? For the most part, fear. Why do you want to do that? What's wrong with you? You better be careful. Are you sure you know what you're doing? All of these statements came about. And then people started to mock it. Well, you know, we don't do that. What do you think? You know, what are you trying to do? Are you going through a midlife crisis? What's wrong with you? And I would try to explain to them, no, I'm really just at a plateau. That's all. This is not something I don't have an issue. I just need something different to do because I've done so much. And but that even confirmed why I needed to go, because all of the pushback that I got and the level of misinformation that I was hearing come out of people's mouths was like, no, this is going to be bigger than me just climbing Mount Kilimanjaro. This is going to be a story that's going to educate for generations. And when people see exactly what's going on and understanding that it's not the narrative that we've been taught here in America, it will do something, and I believe it'll help a lot of people overcome other areas in their lives. So I said, no, I'm going to climb Mount Kilimanjaro. That's the bottom line. I'm going, and that was that. What was the training like? I went to YouTube University to get my education as far as climbing Mount Kilimanjaro. And I saw what so many others did. How were they successful climbing Mount Kilimanjaro? And I basically created a training plan based off of the knowledge that I gained from YouTube and from reading articles, and it was intense. I will tell you that my first days getting out there to train, I didn't think that I was going to be able to do it. I mean, I knew that the biggest issue I was going to face climbing Kilimanjaro was going to be mental. Physical, it was going to be a challenge, but mentally, I was going to have to push through so many different things in order to get there. So I started slow. I was cycling and I was walking. And I was not a cyclist before Kilimanjaro. I'm a cyclist today. But I got out there my first day, I couldn't ride 6 miles. I was like, this is tough. And so I was discouraged, but I knew I needed to do this to work on my mental, because I made the decision, and at every turn, I was gonna have to keep making decisions. I made the initial decision to go to climb Mount Kilimanjaro, but then the next step is, am I going to make the decision to train? Am I going to follow through with this? How intense is the training gonna be? When I don't feel like training, am I still gonna train? And that's what I went through from day one, barely being able to ride 6 miles, but coming back in a couple of days and now completing the full 11 miles. And then I went from 11 miles to 18 miles. And then I went from there to 36 miles and finally got up to 42.25 miles before I went to climb Mount Kilimanjaro. And then with walking, there was a hill that I had to climb up, and it was very difficult. And I said, if I can't climb up this little hill right here, how am I going to get to the top of Mount Kilimanjaro? And I was discouraged. And I think that's where we are in life. We hit these roadblocks, and sometimes those roadblocks kind of get in the way of us, really pushing through and getting to the next level. So I had to really force myself from a mental perspective to hang all the way through.
For all the kids at summer camp, this is Mr. J.
Kiss it.
Kissing
Kiss
the rock.
it.
Yeah, woo! And that's the reason that you guys all got to listen to him. Because he doesn't dream.
So right before going to Kilimanjaro, it was suggested that I climb a mountain in the Shenandoah called Old Rag Mountain. Keep in mind, I'm not a mountain climber. Never climbed a mountain in my life. But I said, if I can handle Old Rag, which is roughly 3,000 feet, then I should be able to handle Mount Kilimanjaro, because we were breaking up the days to climb roughly between 2,000 and 3,000 feet a day. So I said, if I can climb Old Rag, then I should be okay getting up Kilimanjaro. It took everything in me to get to the top of Old Rag. And this was the week of Kilimanjaro. I struggled up Old Rag. And social media make the pictures look good, but I know how long it took me to get up there. And I know what I was thinking to myself. I said, what have I gotten myself into? But I did it. So that was on Monday. I was going to start my climb on Kilimanjaro that Saturday. So here we are. The moment of truth is upon me, and I'm having to make some decisions. Every day is a decision. The equipment that I needed to purchase, the shoes that I needed to purchase. I actually purchased the wrong kinds of shoes. And my feet were blistering and everything as I was training. And then a buddy of mine, he said, why don't you go to this store and get these kinds of shoes? And I did. Now at this point, I'd already spent $400 on one pair of boots. Now I need to go spend another $300 on another pair of boots in order for this to happen. And so I'm trying to get you to understand that this wasn't me just going to climb a mountain. This was me going through a process of preparation. And this is what we go through in life. I had a goal. My goal was to get to the top. Sometimes when your goal is to get to the top, it costs you more than what you anticipated. So now there's a financial impact, in addition to the mental impact, in addition to the physical impact. But what I did not know was what was going to happen on the mountain. I didn't understand that. All I knew was that I wanted to get to the top. But from the moment of the decision to climb to going through that process, I could not have imagined how my life was going to change. So the day of the trip arrives, my son drops me off at the airport, and obviously I'm excited because here I get to go back to Africa again. This time my first stop is Ethiopia, and going back to that Uber ride, I would have never considered Ethiopia if she did not speak so highly of it and so eloquently about the beauty of Ethiopia. So I get on the plane, one of the best experiences I've ever had on an airplane in my life. I land in Ethiopia. And as I'm landing in Ethiopia, I'm looking out of the window and I'm just thinking to myself, wow, all of these years I've been afraid to come to this continent because of misinformation. But I'm looking out of the window and I said, one, this journey has led me to conquer my fears again. Now I haven't even gotten to the mountain. Ethiopia's first. I spend a day in Ethiopia. I go to Gondor, and I begin to learn about the ancient history of Ethiopia that you'll never learn about where I come from.
The language called Ge'ez. Ge'ez means first. And this is the only language in Africa except Copts. This is the only language in Africa written, documented. We call it Ge'ez. We do believe it's the first language. So, this is our number and calendar.
And I'm walking through these castles, I'm walking through the villages, I'm meeting the children, I'm just seeing so much of authentic Ethiopian life that I would have never seen. I'm even flying on prop planes. I'm getting on these prop planes in Ethiopia. But I'm not fearful because I understand that I'm in a different space in my life now. I understand that if I'm going to get to the top of Kilimanjaro, I can't be afraid to get on a prop plane. So here I am flying all through Ethiopia, and then it's now time for me to fly to Kilimanjaro. I land in Kilimanjaro, and it's now starting to become real because I'm here. I'm in Tanzania now. I'm here. This moment is about to occur. So I go to the hotel and I meet the group that I'll be climbing with. And so it was 8 of us, and we came from different backgrounds. 2 came from Great Britain, 4 from Arizona, and then another person from the Washington, D.C. area. And Nat, he just happened to be an 83-year-old Holocaust survivor. And I couldn't believe it. If you were to see him, I thought he was in his 60s. He said, "Oh no, I'm 83. And I said, "So what did your wife say to you about taking this climb?" He said, "She said I was crazy." And so we just, we instantly hit it off. And as a group, we became a family. So here we are, the moment of truth, the day of departure for Mount Kilimanjaro. So we're riding along, and as we're riding, the giraffe crosses in front of us. And I said, "Yeah, I'm in Africa now for real." I said, "Here I am." Giraffe, a random giraffe crossing the road. You're like, okay, now do they bite or whatever? So, we just get to thinking all kinds of things. So we get to Kilimanjaro, and they begin to send us through the processing of what we need to go through. And we're sitting there just kind of waiting. And we put on our backpacks. And as we put on our backpacks, I instantly knew I was in trouble. I had too much weight in my backpack. Now, we had porters who would carry our other pack, but there was a day pack that we carried. And the minute we started walking, I knew I was in trouble because I could feel the pain from the fatigue of my muscles because it was just too much. And I didn't train with a backpack. I was riding a bike, I was walking. I did carry a pack when I did Old Rag, and I struggled with that, but I knew that this was different. So day 1, I struggled. Day 1, I was like, okay, I think I made a mistake. But in my mind, I said, I came here to get to the top of Kilimanjaro. So I'm not going back. Plus I spent too much money. So I kept walking, and I said, well, what I'm gonna do tonight when we get to camp, I'll unload this and put this in my other bag. And so that's what I did. And I didn't sleep well day 1. Day 2 comes around, now I'm dealing with jet lag because Tanzania is a 7-hour difference from where I live in DC. So now I'm dealing with jet lag, I'm fatigued, my legs are aching because of what happened on day 1, and I really did not know if I was gonna make it. So I had to adjust my strategy. And so the running joke in the group was, well, Jay, what are you gonna do? I said, I have a strategy. So I was known as Mr. Strategy. So what I did was I slowed my pace down, because my goal was to get to the top. And sometimes in life, what we're trying to do is sprint to the top, but we need to make adjustments to our pace and slow down so that we can get to the top. So what I did, I slowed down to the point where I got to the camp 2 hours after most of the other team members got there. So I know in their mind, they were thinking, I don't think Jay is gonna make it. I don't know if he's gonna do it. And in my mind, I was like, no, I'm gonna make it, but this is a little bit more than what I was anticipating. And I'm gonna have to pull on some reserves that I don't know if I have, but I have to get there, I have to do this. So day 3 comes around, I got some sleep the night of day 2. Well, day 1, we walked through the forest Day 2, we're still somewhat in the forest, and now day 3, we're coming out into like a desert area. They call it the alpine desert, if you will. Well, it's almost alpine desert. You're heading in that direction, and you can feel that the temperature is beginning to drop, and you can also tell that the altitude is starting to change some, because now you're about 9,000 feet up. Now we're going up to a height of 19,341 feet, just so you understand how tall Mount Kilimanjaro is, 19,341. So we're walking, we're seeing other people from other camps. I mean, we're really having great conversation. The views are beautiful. Everything is just one of the most remarkable and incredible experiences that I will ever partake in. I know that already. But as I'm standing there and just looking at the beauty of what I'm a part of, I think back to the beginning of when I made the decision. You know, I was like, wow, what if I never made this decision? I would not have even been able to see what I've seen so far. So day 3 happens, and then we're approaching day 4. And what I did not anticipate, and this was the part, because somebody said, well, what were some things you did not expect? Well, let me tell you what I didn't expect. In between the camps, I didn't realize that they didn't have bathrooms anywhere. And I think most of the people in my group did not realize it also. So I saw one of my group members just gotta say, stop everybody. And we were like, okay. And they just took off running behind a rock. Big boulder, I should say. A rock is like a little rock, but the boulder is a big old boulder. And I said, well, what's going on back there? So when he came out, he was like rubbing his belly. He's like, whoo. I said, oh no. I said, oh no, this is not what I think it is. It was exactly what I thought it was. And at that point, I became fearful, because I said, you mean to tell me you don't have like a Jiffy John like along the way? He said, oh no. No. You see that boulder over there? See that over there? I said, yeah. He said, well, that's the bathroom. I said, oh no. So here we are walking along, and I'm saying, well, hopefully I can get to camp without any issues. Needless to say, that didn't happen. So here I am. I said, what is going on? I said, oh boy. I said, everybody stop. Stop, everybody, stop. And I was looking around for the boulder. And there was the boulder. I'm one of those people, I don't rush anything. So when I said stop, that meant everybody was going to get a nice long break. And I said, so you're out there, and you have your wipes, and I said, I don't believe this is happening to me right now. Oh my goodness. But then it started happening to the whole team. And then when I saw some ladies run off I said, oh my goodness. I said, what is going on? I was not prepared for that. But you know, we became family real quick. So then got back to the camp, and got to the tent, and we would just eat. It was such a good time. You struggled through the day, but then when you got to camp and you had a chance to sit down and eat, because our porters were the absolute best in the world. Hear what I'm saying to you. These Tanzanian men cooked on that mountain. They ran up and down that mountain just like we run through the mall.
All right, Augustine.
Yeah.
All right. He's been cooking for us. He's been handling the food. Excellent job. And I can't wait to come back to your restaurant.
Welcome.
Yeah, to your restaurant.
Enjoy.
So we go to the mall during Christmas time and run through the mall. They run up and down Kilimanjaro. And so I had a running joke with them. I said, see what they did to me? I said, see how they made me all soft climbing this mountain and everything. So they were joking, but here's the funny part. They were rooting for me to get to the top. These African men were like, no, the American black man, we wanted to see him get to the top. And so there was this bond that we had. But what I was fascinated by was how they would walk up the mountain with these 50-pound bags on their head. I'm struggling walking up the mountain with a backpack on and need special shoes with orthopedics inside to get up the mountain. They were just walking up the mountain with the regular tennis shoes and everything. And I gained such a respect for them that I can't even put it into words, because that's hard labor. That right there, that's your career, that's your job, but that's hard labor. And those brothers got up and down that mountain. And so we became family with them. I remember the just different landmarks, Lava Tower. It took what it took for us to climb up to Lava Tower. And then after we climbed Lava Tower, then they wanted to see how we handled altitude, so they took us up another 1,000 feet just to see if we could handle it. Because the key to this whole thing is altitude. You can be the most physically fit person in the world, but if you're not prepared for altitude, then that can bring you down quickly. So they kept trying to see what we can handle as far as altitude was concerned. So then there was Lava Tower. Then we had the Barranco Wall. The Barranco Wall was this massive wall that you go and you scale and you climb. It's like a rock scramble kind of wall. It takes really pretty much all of your physical strength to be able to do it. So we did the Barranco Wall. That was really tough. That was really tough.
We made it to the top after the rock scramble. Life above the clouds is completely different. Behind me is the summit.
But every day when we would get to a new height, it was like another level of confidence was coming.
Here live on Kilimanjaro and just having a great time.
So by this time, I was able to get rest in the evenings, and I had a strategy. My strategy was to pace myself. And my research revealed to me that the most intense night was going to be summit night. And summit night was basically the night when you go to the top of the mountain. We went through Barranco Wall, we continued through the next day, and we were just kind of getting ready for summit night. And then here we are, summit night. Summit night is when you leave out at 11 o'clock and you climb all night as you reach the summit of Mount Kilimanjaro. But here's the catch. It's 0 degrees. So now when you start to climb Mount Kilimanjaro, you're in tropical weather. So you're in the 80s, and then as you begin to ascend, now you're starting to feel the temperature change. So now I'm in full winter gear, full coats, 5 layers, everything. But this was the most difficult night of my life. And it took everything in me to get to the top. Because it was cold.
I made it to the roof of Africa. 19,000 feet. And this has been the most rewarding experience of my life.
All we had on were headlamps, and it was like when you would look up, it was just endless headlamps. As you're looking up the mountain, you're like, now remember it's at night, so all you see is headlamps. You don't know how far you have to go, and all you know to do is to put one foot in front of the other. And for me, my focus and my strategy was just to breathe, because now we're approaching 50% oxygen. And I have watched them medevac so many people off of the mountain. See, that's one critical part of it. There were people getting medevaced off of the mountain. Physically fit mountain climbers getting medevaced off of the mountain. So I'm looking at this, especially on day 4, when the helicopters would come over and you're just kind of like, wow, what is that? The thought of fear came, because all I was thinking about was, how do I come to this point? I'm at 15,000 feet now. How do I come this far and not get to the top? And so now every fearful thought is coming to my mind, every doubt is coming to my mind, but then I'm wrestling with it because I said, I'm going to get to the top of this mountain. But it's often what happens in life, you know, I'm going to get to the top of something, I'm going to do it, but then you have these circumstances that are completely out of your control. They try to come along and distract you. So now I have to go into a zone that I've never gone into before, because I've never climbed a mountain before, but the way that I was treating all of the days before. So sometimes in life, when you're focused and you're trying to go and do something, it's like all of these things that are out of your control start to happen. And that's what was happening around me. So I'm watching people who I look up to, they were breaking down emotionally. There were people breaking down physically. They were vomiting off to the side. They couldn't go anymore. And I'm saying, well, first thought I was, why am I here? What am I doing? You know, but I knew in that moment that this is what I came for. And I came to this point to see if I could get all the way there. There was a thought that I had. It was like, well, if I go back, well, one, I knew I wasn't going to do this again. So going back was not an option. But then I thought to myself, I said, well, I have to go back those 15,000 feet. And then if I call myself coming back to try it again, I'm going to have to climb these 15,000 feet again to climb these 4,000 feet. So I might as well go ahead and climb these 4,000 feet and get this thing over with. But that's easier said than done when you're freezing and your hands are numb inside of the gloves. But on the flip side, you're sweating profusely because you have too many layers on. So I'm dealing with all of that. And so we got to about 17,000 feet and I sat down and I suddenly felt nauseous. And I said, oh no. I said, this can't be happening right now. This is not. So what they did was they came and they gave me chocolate. They said, you have to eat chocolate. Eat this chocolate right now. So I ate the chocolate and it was instantly like I had energy. Now they were feeding us very well. Every day they fed us exceptionally well. But we're burning 6,000 to 8,000 calories per day. So I didn't realize that I was losing weight while I was climbing. So they give me the chocolate. It keeps me going a little bit more. I'm drinking mango juice. I'm doing what I need to do, but it seemed like this thing would never end. I had my playlist. I got my phone. I'm listening to my music. It would keep me going for a little while, and then that got old. I was like, look, when are we gonna get to the top of this thing? But it's still dark outside. People are dropping like flies. This is not good. So I slowed my pace down. I said, my goal is to get to the top. And I went into a zone of just breathing. All I did was breathe. And I took these deep breaths. And as I was taking each step, all I could do was to start thinking about something that would give me the strength to go to the next step. Because I didn't know how long I had to go. It was, oh, well, maybe a couple more hours or so. Then after 2 hours passed, and they say, you still got to go 2 more hours. That's the kind of ball game I was in. So I said, okay, let me just focus. And I went into a zone where I started thinking about the impact that this would have for other people, the kids that I mentor. How would this impact them? Because I didn't know anybody else who would climb Mount Kilimanjaro, not from where I came from. So I didn't know anybody who had done that. And I thought about my children and how this would impact them. I thought about my grandparents and all the sacrifices they made for me and my aunt. I thought about just the magnitude of this moment for people who wanted to climb, but they can't climb. Or for people who, like, wow, how did that happen? So I had to tap into that place. I was praying like I've never prayed before. I felt like I was crazy. I felt like all kinds of things, but I was like, I have to get to the top, because once I get there, that changes everything. That puts me in a different space, because if anybody really understands, from a non-mountain climber, and for this being the second mountain, but really the first major mountain that I've ever climbed, I said, I have to get to the top. I've come so far. I cannot quit now. But everything, the elements, the mental fatigue, but then I had to tap into that, remembering the days when I was riding my bike, remembering the training and what I went through with the training, those first days when I couldn't go 6 miles on my bike, but here I am almost at the top of Mount Kilimanjaro. I remember the day when I made the decision to climb Mount Kilimanjaro. And now here I am almost at the top and I'm about to quit. I said, there's no way this is gonna happen. Once I said to myself, I'm getting to the top of this mountain, and I knew I was gonna get there, that's when all the emotions came. And I started crying like a baby. It happened twice. I couldn't believe it. I was like, why am I crying like a baby? Well, I understood. At this point, I made a decision, and now here I am almost at the top of this major goal. I remembered one day just kind of standing up, we were about 15,000 feet, and waking up, and you wake up and you're above the cloud.
We are in a cloud. That's what's happening.
I'm dressed like a handmaid.
And and you look out, and normally when you look up to the clouds, you see it, but now when I'm waking up, I'm looking out and I'm above the clouds. And that view was something so surreal and unforgettable. But as I'm standing there, I'm saying to myself, wow, everything it took for me to get to see this view, what in my life have I missed out on because I was not willing to take the steps to get to the top of it? And I opted to stay in a comfort zone or familiar zone with what I knew. I said, this was completely outside of my familiar zone. And look at the view. Look at what I see. And that's when I understood that I had not reached my full potential in life. I'd done a lot. I thought I'd done a lot beneath the clouds. But what it took me to get above the clouds was now where the game changer came in. So here we are going through the night. Then it becomes day. And I'm like, okay, now it's daytime. We're still not there. It was snowing now. Freezing, snowing. And they kept saying, after a while, they said, you're almost there. I said, well, how far? About an hour. I said, that's not almost there. I'm not almost there. I'm not almost there. And they said, just keep going, keep going. So you would see people who had already been to the top and they were coming down, keep going, you're almost there. Now I'm feeling like people lying to me. But I said, I'm not gonna come down now. So one young lady, she said to me, she said, well, you know, what some people do is they go to the summit. There's like two summits. There's a false summit and then there's the real summit. The false summit is where a lot of people go and then they say, well, I've summited. I made it to the top. She said, well, you know, a lot of people do that and then they just go down. So when she said that, I instantly said, I did not come here to come in second place. So I got to the second summit. They said, do you want to take a picture here? I said, no picture. I said, get me to the top. I said, okay, you sure? Yes, get me to the top. We start walking again. I said, how far are we again? He said, about 45 minutes. I said, 45 minutes? You told me that 45 minutes ago. He said, no, you're almost there. So we started walking. And at this point, I'm starting to feel the effects of altitude sickness because I'm at 50% oxygen and I'm walking. But I'm breathing. All I'm focused on is breathing. Oxygen, breathing. And we just kept taking step by step by step. He said, you're almost there. I said, yeah, you told me that before. Just wait till I see the sign. And before I knew it, I looked up. I saw the sign. It was off in the distance, but I could see it. And then there was another moment because I knew I was there. I knew in that moment, my life changed because there's a place that I can speak from now that I couldn't speak from before. There's an authority that I have now that I didn't have before because I can walk you step by step through that journey. A regular person, not somebody who trained for like 12 years and my family grew up in the mountains and this is what we do. No, I'm a country boy. I'm a city boy. We're level ground, low country of South Carolina, no mountains. DC, you might get a little hill every now and then at the top of Mount Kilimanjaro. So as I approached the sign, there were so many emotions that were taking place, but getting there was priceless. So I arrived at the sign.
Here at the summit of Mount Kilimanjaro. It just took so much to do that. Oh man. I have no words to describe this. No words. The largest freestanding mountain in the world. Simply amazing. Simply amazing.
Can't even believe it. I spent a little time just looking around. The summit is really foggy, it was snowing, so I couldn't really see the view of the glacier or anything like that. I saw that sign though. I saw that you're at the roof of Africa, the tallest freestanding mountain in the world, 19,341 feet. I took my picture and I wanted to hang out, but I told my tour guide, I said, I'm really sleepy and I just want to take a nap. If I can just lay over there and take a nap, I'll be good. He said, no, you don't want to take a nap up here. I said, listen, I'm really tired. I was up all night. You know, can I just take a quick nap and then we can go back down? And he told me, he said, if you take a nap, you probably won't wake up. This is when I knew it was time for me to go down, and it wasn't because he told me that. It was when I thought to myself, I don't care, I still want to take a nap. When my mind said that, I said, it's time for me to go down, because I'm not even thinking rationally. I'm thinking, he's going to tell me that there's a possibility of me dying up here if I take a nap. And there's a part of me that says, I just want to take a nap. So as I begin to descend, I'm stumbling. And I said, why am I stumbling? What's going on? Why am I stumbling? And he said, because of the oxygen. He said, I felt like I was drunk. It was horrible. So I'm going down the mountain, and going down was probably as bad as coming up, because now it's not even fatigue, it was just the altitude sickness that was affecting me. And so they got me down to a lower altitude, and I just fell down. I said, I'm not going anywhere. Like a kid, I'm not going anymore. That's it, I'm not going anymore. So amazing thing that happened, there were 4 Tanzanian men. They came and they put my arms on their shoulders and they said, come on, we're gonna walk you back down this mountain. And it was like our Moses moment for real. I said, this is something deep. And they got me back down to a safer altitude where I could breathe and really kind of take in what had happened. Now, some of my other teammates, they had to get medevaced off the top of the mountain. One person, he made it to the top, but then they had to send a helicopter right then, as soon as he got there, because he barely got there. As I was coming down the mountain, I was just kind of like, wow, I can't believe that this just happened. Meaning from the standpoint of making it there and now coming back down and being able to have this experience and have it where I could share with the rest of the world. You know, not just me talking about it, but I can share this with anybody who wants to see it. And so I think back on that moment and how those brothers took care of me. Those Tanzanian men made sure that this American, African dude, was taken care of on that mountain. And we identified as brothers. There was none of that. It was like, that's my brother. They could see my skin and they said, that's my brother. And they came and they at every turn, they took care of everybody. They didn't show any favoritism, but they knew there was something special about me being there with them. And so they made sure I was taken care of.
The guys who helped me last night here?
All the guys who helped you?
The ones who helped me come down?
Oh, this guy here, this too?
Thank you.
Strong boys.
Thank you so much.
He's the one who put my dad on his shoulders.
Oh, really? Yeah, he's
got my dad.
He's strong. No, he's strong.
Strong man.
He's strong because he was pulling me. He pulled. I said, were you part of it too? Yeah. Oh man.
Thank you very much.
Okay, guys.
Thank you.
All right. Oh man, thank you, man. Thank you so much. All right, you helped me on the mountain.
Okay.
Yeah.
One question that comes up is, where do we stay and how did we live? We lived in tents that the porters would set up for us. They really did everything for us. They cooked for us, they set up our tents. But I was that guy that had to be extra. So I had basically a little studio on Kilimanjaro. So let me take you inside my world and inside my tent.
So, right here is where I am right now, in the sleeping bag. And I do everything, change clothes, bathe. Well, not everything, almost everything. And so it really works well. And again, like I said, the technology wing, give you a better shot. Here's one solar charger, another solar charger, satellite phone, personal hygiene wing right there, hand sanitizer, Listerine, day pack, hat, shades, wipes, duffel bag, and boots. And this is where I'm living. This is how it is. And I actually put my feet in another coat so I can keep it warm. So I like warm the clothes that I'm gonna wear. throughout the course of the day. So this is what we're working with.
We did everything in those sleeping bags because it was so cold. The sleeping bag was rated at -30 degrees. So you bathed in the sleeping bag? Right. Figure that out. Everything was in the sleeping bag. And so at night, they give you a bottle. You don't get up and go out. You get a little bottle and you figure it out. I'm telling you, that's gonna rule out some people right there. They're not even gonna do it. Once they hear about the boulders and the bottles, they're like, I'm not doing that. But I'm telling you, you get over it. It's same little ones they give you in the hospital. That's what you take up the mountain, and that's what you do. But I had the studio, I had my solar chargers, I had my satellite phone. All of that was right there. I was fully equipped with whatever I needed to do, whatever I needed to do on that mountain. I'll never forget this moment where I was talking to some of my Tanzanian brothers. We started talking about music, and I was asking them if they knew some of the West African musicians and artists. And so I played some of the songs for them. They didn't know them, but then when I played this song right here,
Davido.
of course, you know. Yeah. So they played at Tanzania?
Yeah, we played the most played.
Okay, they played a lot in America too. He woke right up. It was Davido. And so when I played Davido, he's like, oh, Davido. He just went off because he understood. So I guess Davido's all over Africa. So that was a moment that I will always remember also. Just kind of hanging out and just talking and being, just being brothers with these young men. As I reflect on the magnitude of the moment of reaching the top of Mount Kilimanjaro, there are really no words that I can find for it because it was just all experience. And this all occurred within 10 months. My first trip to Africa was in November, but here I am at the top of Mount Kilimanjaro in August. And I'm going through this myriad of emotions and thoughts and, what's next? What happens next? Where does life go from here? Life was not going to be the same because I've seen some things, I've experienced some things, I've been a part of something special that has challenged me on a level I've never been challenged before. So the magnitude of that moment was so much bigger than just getting to the top. It was like my whole life, my whole mission has now gone to another level. I conquered my fears in 10 months. And I think that's the biggest thing because I was terrified of Africa. I was trained to be terrified of Africa. I was trained to put Europe on a pedestal and to put Africa down at the bottom of the barrel for some reason. But not once did I ever stop and think, why do so many parts of Africa suffer from the challenges that they have? As I'm standing in front of the Eiffel Tower, or as I'm standing in London, or as I'm standing in all of these in Madrid or Lisbon. And then it clicked. Although those places are beautiful, but the problems and the narrative that have been shaped in Africa is a direct result of the prosperity or the apparent prosperity that's occurring there. So I'm just sitting there and I'm kind of looking at it and I'm saying to myself, for years, I would say I'd never want to go to Africa, or I talk about it, I'm going to go help the poor, I'm going to help do something, but not really see the beauty of the continent and what all it had to offer. This was a mountain that I needed to climb. I did not need it to move. I needed to climb every step. I don't know how many thousands of steps I climbed, but I needed every one of them because each step had a lesson attached to it, even if the lesson was just to get to the next step. And then each day had a lesson attached to it. Each hour, each conversation, each sight that I was able to see had some sort of lesson attached to it. And it was dealing with fear. It was dealing with conquering misperceptions. So when I talk about my perspective changed, my perspective about life and limitations changed. My perspectives about people changed. And so now I don't walk around, just with preconceived notions about people. I now take the time to listen to them talk and hear their heart. And that's what came off of this mountain. It's interesting to see that. That's what came off of this mountain and my trip to West and East Africa. Here's some of my personal takeaways. The first one is there's nothing that I can't do. And when I say that, understanding that obviously me flying like a bird might not be something I can do. But as far as my own limitations, I have to stop and say, now, am I stopping myself from doing it? Or is this a legitimate roadblock that I can't overcome? And so when I change my perspective to say, well, wait a minute, I got to the top of Mount Kilimanjaro. I can do this. I have a low tolerance for mediocrity within myself because of the training and all that it took for me to get to the top on summit night. Now the excuses that I would try to use when I would say, oh, well, I don't know if I can do that. I don't know if I can finish that. I'm tired. Let me just go I'll get it tomorrow. Now I tap into that Kilimanjaro. It's like, well, I need to get it done today. See, the big takeaway is that when I couldn't ride 6 miles at the beginning of my training for Kilimanjaro, when I got back home, I was determined to do my first century ride. And a century ride is to ride 100 miles in a day. And within a couple of weeks of coming back from Kilimanjaro, I did my first century ride. So one of the byproducts of Kilimanjaro is now I'm a cyclist. I can ride 50 miles in a day with no problem. And I also left 20 pounds on Kilimanjaro. So I went there at one weight and I came back 20 pounds lighter. But that also shows up in improved health, improved energy. There's so many benefits from this experience. It's priceless. It's literally priceless. I got clarity. That's the one thing. When I talk about hitting that plateau, there is no plateau anymore. I got clarity. I know what I need to do. I understand my mission and my assignment on another level. And part of it is to be able to educate people as it pertains to the truth about Africa, but then also to lead people and inspire people to visit the continent. That's just one part of the clarity. I gained confidence. Whereas before the insecurities would try to come along and discourage me, now I have the confidence to say, well, wait a minute. Remember those steps that you had to take to get to the top? You can get there. See, now that's a part of my reference, my reference points. I can go back to that. And so that confidence level is another benefit of climbing Kilimanjaro. Another takeaway is I want to inspire others to confront and conquer their own fears. They may never climb Mount Kilimanjaro, but there's something that they're supposed to do. And so hopefully by them seeing what I've gone through and the journey that I took, that they would confront those areas in their lives so they could have their own Kilimanjaro experience. So what's next? Well, I'm going to explore more of Africa, but I won't be doing it by myself because I'm going to be bringing others with me. In my documentary, The Ghana Chronicles, I said that I was going to bring people back to Africa. And so that is what I'm doing. I also said that I was going to visit East Africa. I said that I was going to climb Mount Kilimanjaro, and that's exactly what I did. So the next time you see a documentary, you'll see me with a group of people that I have led to the continent to allow them to have their own experience. I hope to bring thousands to the continent, and I hope to inspire millions to visit this continent that has been so misrepresented on the world stage. I want people to see the truth. After Mount Kilimanjaro, I spent more time in East Africa. I went to Zanzibar, I went on safari, and I went back to Ethiopia. But some of my most memorable moments in East Africa was one on a safari and seeing the zebras in their natural habitat, the lions, having elephants walk right beside me, watching Mama Baboon check her baby for ticks, seeing the water buffaloes, seeing the wildebeest, spending time in the Ngorongoro crater and seeing the wildlife in their natural habitat. It just changed the way, my perspective, I should say, on zoos for sure, because when you see the warthogs in their natural habitat, when you see hippos, it just does something. And then I was on a balloon ride and I got in the balloon and had a chance to fly over the Serengeti. And it's almost like I was a drone on that one, right? But when I got in the balloon, they make you lay back in the balloon and then you go up. And I mean, it was, these memories that are just priceless. You hear about a safari, but then we were on our way to the campsite and we came around a corner and I looked over my shoulder, it was almost at sunset. And I told my driver, I said, stop, stop, stop. I said, I got the Lion King picture right here. I have it right here. And he stopped. And I got the Lion King picture on my phone. But to see all of these animals right there, not afraid of you, it just does something. It gives you an appreciation for life. Then I went to spend some time in Zanzibar at the Spice Island. I saw all of the natural spices and was given a tour. And even my man climbed up with the tree and got a coconut for me, and I could actually drink the coconut water right out of the coconut. It was just unforgettable. The beautiful beaches, then going to Prison Island and seeing the tortoises, and some of those tortoises are over 150 years old. So you can only imagine what they saw, because in Zanzibar is where the East African slave trade occurred. So the East African slave trade is where the Arabs had their slave trade like the Europeans had theirs. I spent time in the East African dungeons and I saw what occurred in that part of Africa as it pertained to the slave trade. The beauty of Zanzibar, the beauty of the people in East Africa, the smiles on the faces I'll never forget. My porters, how they took care of me, how the hotel staff took care of me. My perspective changed and I gained a respect for everyone that I encountered. Spending time in the Maasai tribe is where I probably grew up the most, because for years I would look at mud huts or grass huts negatively. But when they welcomed me into their village and I'm dancing around with them and I'm jumping and doing all of that, it's kind of like, wow, this is all right. But then I sat inside of one of the huts and got an education on how the huts are built. What could I say? How could I criticize their way of life? Because this is how they live. They resisted slavery. And this is how they want to live. They invited me to sit in the classroom with their school children as they were learning math in a mud schoolhouse. But those little kids are kids everywhere. And they came up there and they did their demonstration. They talked 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I said, who am I to criticize how these people are living? I said, what am I thinking? And I kept my mouth shut and I learned from them, because as they began to teach me, I understood that I was the one who was impoverished. I'm looking at them, oh my goodness, look at how they're living, but I was the one who was emotionally impoverished. I was the one who was deficient from an education standpoint, because as they taught me how they live off of the land, I don't know how to live off of the land. Might not want to live off of the land, but that's a skill that they have that I don't have. So I'm just learning from them and gleaning from that and just being in their environment. I just said, wow, I said, this is something I would have never done 10 months ago. But now here I am 10 months later, and I'm learning and I'm appreciating people for who they are. The birthday dinner, just the excitement in Tanzania when they celebrate someone's birthday, they come out and they sing and they walk around the whole restaurant and everything, and they bring it. And I'll never forget that. Just all of the smiling faces, everybody who made it unforgettable. But this one moment right here took the cake. When my safari guide asked me if I knew Kenny Rogers. I said, Kenny Rogers? I said, what you know about Kenny Rogers? He said, yeah, Kenny Rogers. And he started singing Islands in the Stream.
Islands in the stream, that is what we are. Nobody beats me. How can we be wrong? Sail away from me to another world. And we rely on each other. From one level to another.
And I said, what in the world is going on? I'm in the middle of the Serengeti with a 28-year-old African tour guide singing Islands in the Stream. I'll never forget the smiling faces of the many people that I met on my trip to East Africa. I'll never forget the dinner that I had at the restaurant in Ethiopia that was packed out, and the performance that they had that shared Ethiopian culture. I'll hold every moment dear to my heart. I'll remember my days training on my bicycle when it all started. I'll remember the day I made the decision to climb Mount Kilimanjaro, and then the first day that I trained, and what I was feeling, and how at every turn something was trying to keep me away from there, but I kept pushing forward. I'll remember when I climbed to the top of Old Rag Mountain and the feeling that I had, knowing that I felt that I could accomplish getting to the top of Kilimanjaro. I'll remember getting on the plane, I'll remember landing, I'll remember every step of the journey. So now I'm ready for what's next. I don't know, but I've made it to the mountaintop. So as a result of that, whatever comes next, I know that I can conquer. And I hope for you that as you hear this story, whatever you're facing, if you take it step by step and push through all the way to the end, you can conquer whatever you're facing too. All right, it's almost time. It's the morning of the beginning of our ascent up Kilimanjaro. So I have not seen the mountain yet because it's covered by clouds. And I'm just looking forward to whatever the experience holds.
It is amazing that these guys are going to run literally to the top of this mountain carrying all of this weight. Right. So they're trained, conditioned. Wow. All right, we're here at the base, getting situated. We're on the way.
I just might have a problem that you'll understand. We all need somebody to lean on me. When you're not strong, I'll be your friend. I'll help you carry on. For it won't be long till I'm gonna need somebody to lean on.
Now you gonna do the with the Club Nouveau version? We be jamming. There you go.
He was definitely from the US.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Well, 100%.
Yeah.
We clicked instantly.
Yeah, I was about to say, yeah, it's like there's a brother from another mother.
There you go, there you go. All right, so come up this side.
Yeah,
All right. I'm just take my time. All right. No rush.
yeah, hold it.
No rush.
Yes.
Good job.
Huh. So walk over there?
Yeah.
All right. You good? You okay? Okay.
Kiss the rock, baby.
So up here, and probably just set the rope.
All right.
You can keep on moving.
For all the kids at summer camp, this is Mr. J.
Kiss it.
Kissing the rock. Yeah. Woo! And that's the reason that you guys all got to listen to him. Because he doesn't dream.
I do.
Yeah, he's a doer.
All I gotta say, magical.
Yeah.
Magical.
This is the most incredible thing I've seen in a long time. Watching all of this.
Agreed, huh? So the sun's just about to set at Karanga Camp. I'll just share this.
(14,500 feet on Mount Kilimanjaro. It takes as much physical endurance as it does mental endurance. And I guess the oxygen level here is getting lower at some point. So we're here to do acclimatization so we can get used to breathing at this level. And so it's in preparation. You know, everything is about training, preparation, and sometimes we try to jump into things too quickly without the proper training and preparation. And I know that as I prepared for this, I spent a lot of time thinking about this day. Even though we have another 5,000 feet to go, this is a very pivotal moment in the journey. So we're up here and it's beautiful. The wind is blowing, but the one thing I know, this is much more than a climb for me. This is really about, I don't know, building confidence and just a lot of things. Discipline, focus, and making sure that I push through when my mind wants to shut down. Oh, I turned it into a video. Right now we're in the middle of a cloud. We are in a cloud. That's what's happening.
I'm dressed like a handmaid.
This is one adventure I can take. We've seen just about every climate you could think of. Desert. I don't even know what this is. This is like it's not quite a desert, but it's a.
Find your words, Jay.
Yeah, it's not wet. So I don't know what this is. But it's definitely an experience to say the least. If you look, you can see the cloud coming in. I mean, we're so high up, we're literally above the clouds to the point where the clouds come in on this level. And if you look, you can see the mountain and how the cloud just comes in. So we'll have intense fog in a minute. And yeah. But one thing I know is that from the ground, there's a different view of the world from this vantage point. And it's really a priceless view. It puts a lot of things into perspective. Come on. Look at the cloud coming in. Look at that view. It's almost like I don't know what to describe it like. It's like I'm walking into it now. Nightfall, camp time. Now we're about to be in the cloud. It's so humid that it's making my beard wet. All right, summer night, how you feeling?
I'm ready to do this.
You gonna do it?
Yeah. Let's get it done.
Ready to knock it out?
Let's get it done.
Let's conquer this mountain.
Conquer the mountain. Ready, Nat? All right now, let's do it.
I have made. All right. Oh my goodness. You don't understand what it's taken to get to the roof of Africa. The summit, Mount Kilimanjaro. Oh, everything in me to get here. Oh my goodness. I'm so exhausted.
Congratulations.
Oh.
Open up your eyes and see all the fun and mystery. Take an African adventure with Darren and Destiny. From the mountains to the shore, so many things to explore. Take an African adventure with Darren and Destiny.
The Adventures of Darren and Destiny. And Darren and Destiny are twin brother and sister, and you go on their adventures throughout the African diaspora, meaning so African diaspora destinations, primarily focused in Africa, but we go to South America, we're going to go to the Caribbean. Their first book is going to take you to Ghana, and then we're going to go on a safari, and from there we're going to go to Ethiopia, and then we go to Salvador, Brazil. And what the goal is to be able to inspire curiosity in the continent of Africa, in our children from a very young age, and to really tell a more accurate story. Most of our children are exposed to negative images, late night infomercials about how bad things are, everybody's sick, everybody's poor, everyone's uneducated, but that's simply not true. So what Darren and Destiny and their family do is they go to different African destinations. They are learning about these different places. You're beginning to see positive images, but still telling the truth. I mean, that's the important thing, to tell the truth about some of the things that have occurred. But it's all done on our children's level so they begin to understand it. And it begins to pique their curiosity. They begin to learn more. And hopefully one day they will want to explore and visit the continent of Africa and its many countries. There's just so much that Darren and Destiny are able to do, and as they're doing it, it's like they begin to open the minds of a new generation, and they don't get bombarded and indoctrinated with negativity. They're actually able to see positivity and inspiring images and messages about the African diaspora, as well as those who are still indigenous to the continent of Africa, and they begin to learn more and just see things differently. So I'm excited about introducing the Adventures of Darren and Destiny.